Hello, hello. Before we get started on learning about the 5-1 serve-receive rotation, we first need to make sure we're familiar with the overlapping rules in volleyball. If you're not yet sure what those are, check out the link in the description. It's going to explain everything. If you're already familiar with those rules, then let's begin. The 5-1 system refers to there being 5 hitters on the court and 1 setter. My 5 hitters are going to be my 2 outside hitters in red, my 2 middle hitters in pink, and then my 1 right side hitter in blue. My setter is here in green. Before we get into the rotations, the middle hitter in the back row first needs to switch out with the libero, here in yellow. Now we're ready to talk about the rotations. If you've already seen my 6-2 serve-receive rotation video, this is going to look really familiar to you. Rotations 1 through 3 in a 6-2 system are going to be exactly the same as what we're going to do here in the 5-1. So in rotation 1, with my setter in the right back, my outside hitter is just going to pull in front of that setter in the back row, and then my right side hitter is just going to cover anything at the 10-foot line. So rotation 1 simply looks like this. After the ball is passed, it's time to run the offense. Because my outside and my right side hitters are on the complete opposite sides of the court from their normal hitting positions, we're going to stay 1. So, my outside hitter is going to transition to the right side, and my right side hitter is going to transition to the outside. My middle is obviously going to transition to the middle, and then my setter is going to run to the setting position. So rotation 1, transitioning to the offense, just looks like this. After the ball crosses the plane of the net, it's time to go into base defense. No matter what rotation I start in, base defense will look almost exactly like this. My setter is going to go to the right back along the 10-foot line. My outside hitter will be left side at the net, middle hitter, middle at the net, right side hitter, right side at the net, libero, left back on the 10-foot line, and outside hitter in the back row, middle back. Before we move into rotation 2, I first want to talk about a variation of rotation 1. Rotation 1 normally looks like this. But if we see that our outside hitter, who is pulled back to pass, is struggling to pass in the back row, well, we'll do something called swing the passers. So, the outside hitter and the setter are going to swing upwards. My libero is going to fill in that position, outside hitter will fill that in, and then the right side hitter will swing back and pass instead. Of course, we can't forget the overlapping rule. My setter can't step in front of the outside hitter in the front row, the libero can't step to the right of the setter, and this right side hitter who was pulled back can't step behind the outside hitter in the back row. Now let's talk about rotation 2. I've set the players back to their original positions in rotation 1, so let's rotate. In rotation 2, my setter is going to push up close to the right side hitter in the front row, and that leaves a gap in the middle of the court. So my libero is going to fill in that gap, and that leaves a gap on my left side of the court. So my outside hitter in the front row is going to pull back and fill in that position. Setting up rotation 2 looks like this. Remember, we can't forget the overlapping rule. My outside hitter, who's pulled back to pass, can't step behind my libero in the back row. Likewise, my libero can't step to the right of my setter. After the ball is passed, it's time to transition to run the offense. Because my outside hitter is close to their normal hitting position, there's no need to stay 1. So my outside hitter will just transition to the outside. My middle hitter will transition to the middle. My right side hitter transition to the right side. And then my setter will obviously go into the setting position. Rotation 2, transitioning to the offense, just looks like this. When the ball goes over to the other side of the net, it's time to go back into base defense. I've reset the players back to their initial positions for rotation 2, so let's talk about rotation 3. Let's rotate one more time. Now, I have a libero in the front row and my middle hitter in the back row. So what's going to happen is my second middle is going to switch with that libero in the front row, and the libero is going to switch back in for the middle hitter in the back row. In rotation 3, my setter is going to push close to the center of the court. My outside hitter is going to fill in that gap. Setting up rotation 3 looks like this. Don't forget the overlapping rules. My setter can't step in front of my middle hitter in the front row or to the right of the outside hitter in the back row. Likewise, this outside hitter, even though he or she is pulled back, can't step behind the outside hitter in the back row or to the left of the middle hitter in the front. After the ball is passed, it's time to transition to run the offense. Right side hitter will just go to the right. Setter will just go to the setting position. Middle transitions to the middle. Outside hitter in the front row will just transition to the outside. Rotation 3, transitioning to the offense, just looks like this. After the ball crosses the net, it's time to go back into base defense. Before we get into rotation 4, I first want to talk about the swing variation for rotation 3. It's very similar to what was done in rotation 1. Rotation 3 normally looks like this. But if we see that our outside hitter, who is pulled in to pass, is struggling to do so, we'll swing the passers again. So, the outside hitter is instead going to stack left, and the setter is going to push up as well. The outside hitter in the back row is going to swing to the left, the libero will follow, and then the right side hitter, again, will swing back to pass instead. Rotation 4 and on is when things start to differ from the 6-2 serve receive rotation. Let's rotate one more time here. Remember, in a 5-1, I really only have one main setter, so that setter has to play in the front row as well. In rotation 4, my right side hitter in the back row is going to step closer to the end line to see any ball that comes close. The libero will fill in his or her position, and the outside hitter in the back row will fill in the liberos. My setter will step to the left, and my middle hitter will stack with that setter. The outside hitter is going to pass in the left back position. Setting up rotation 4 looks like this. I know it looks a little crazy, but we actually haven't violated any of the overlapping rules. My libero is still to the left of my right side hitter in the back row. My outside hitter that's pulled back to pass has to stay to the right of the middle hitter, and that middle hitter has to stay to the right of the setter. After the ball is passed up, it's time to transition to run the offense. So the middle hitter will transition to the middle, the setter will go to the setting position, and this outside hitter will transition to the outside. So rotation 4, transitioning to the offense, just looks like this. Because my setter is now playing in the front row position instead of my right side hitter, my only two front row hitting options are my outside hitter and my middle hitter. But because my setter is in the front row position, this also opens up the option to run a setter dump. After the ball goes over the net, it's time to go back into base defense. So my outside hitter will stay at the left side at the net. The middle hitter will be middle at the net. The setter, since the setter is now front row, will play right side at the net. The outside in the back row will stay middle back. The libero will be left back on defense. And the right side hitter, now that he or she is back row, will play at the right back along the 10-foot line. I moved the pieces back to the initial positions of rotation 4, so we'll rotate one more time to talk about rotation 5. In rotation 5, the setter can basically already stand in the setting position. The middle hitter can step close to the 10-foot line to catch anything short. The back row right side hitter will step back and hide between the libero and the outside hitter. This outside hitter that's in the front row is again going to pull back and fill in the position by the libero. Setting up rotation 5 goes like this. Transitioning to the offense is pretty straightforward from here. The setter is already at the setting position, so the middle hitter will just go to the middle, and then the outside hitter will just go to the outside. Rotation 5 transitioning to the offense looks like this. Again, since my setter is in the front row, my only two front row hitting options are my outside and my middle. Because the right side is now open, this also allows the middle to run some back slides. And of course, after the ball goes over the net, go back into base defense. The pieces have been moved back to the initial positions of rotation 5. Let's rotate it another time. Now that my libero is in the front row, the middle hitter is going to switch back in that position, and the libero is going to come back and switch for the middle hitter in the back row. To set up rotation 6, my setter again can just stand close to his or her setting position. The right side hitter in the back row will step back and watch anything close to the line. The middle hitter is going to step to the left to make room for this outside hitter filling in that spot in the left back position. Moving into position for rotation 6 looks like this. The overlapping rule still hasn't been broken, as long as the outside hitter in the front row does not step behind the outside hitter in the back row, and that the middle hitter stays to the left of the outside hitter. Transitioning to the offense is again very straightforward from here. The middle hitter will just go to the middle, the outside hitter will just go to the outside. Moving into offense just looks like this. And again, after the ball goes over the net, go back into base defense. So we just finished covering all the rotations in a 5-1 system. But what if I wanted a defensive specialist, here in orange, to play back row for the right side hitter instead? Let's rotate one more time. And let's have that DS substitute for that right side hitter in the back row. Because I now have a defensive specialist, the outside hitter in the front row doesn't have to cover as much ground on serve-receive. We still, however, want to run a smooth transition and an effective offense. So, my setter is going to step to the left, and the middle hitter in the front row will stack left with them. This outside hitter will cover anything short along the 10-foot line on the left side. So rotation 4 with the defensive specialist looks like this. Transitioning to the offense is again very straightforward. The middle will just go to the middle, setter to the setting position, the outside hitter to the outside. Moving into base defense is exactly the same, but instead of my right side hitter in the back row, my defensive specialist is going to take that position instead. Now what about rotation 5? So let's rotate one more time. Because of this DS in the back row, the outside hitter again doesn't have to cover as much ground on serve-receive. So setting up serve-receive in rotation 5 will be very, very simple. The setter will just go into the setting position, the middle hitter will just stay close to the 10-foot line, and then this outside hitter will catch anything short at the 10-foot line on the left side. Setting up the serve-receive just looks like this. Transitioning to the offense is very simple from here too. The outside will just go to the outside, the middle will just go to the middle, and the setter is already at the setting position. What do we do after the ball goes over the net? What was that called? Base defense! Okay, one last rotation. Here are the initial positions for rotation 5, so let's go into rotation 6. Again, my Libero's in the front row, so a middle will switch back in here. And the Libero will go back for the middle hitter in the back row. Having a DS really makes things easy for the players on the court. To set up rotation 6, the middle hitter will just step to the left a little bit, and the outside hitter will go to the 10-foot line on the left side. The setter can, of course, stand in the setting position immediately. Setting up rotation 6 just looks like this. Transitioning is again very easy. The outside will just go to the outside, middle will just go to the middle, and the setter's already in the setting position. One last time. After the ball goes over the net, it's time to go into what? If we rotate one more time after rotation 6, my DS is now in the front row, so I want my right side hitter to substitute in for that DS, and now I'm back into rotation 1. Congrats, you just finished all the different rotations in a 5-1 system. Give yourself a pat on the back and a cookie because you deserve it. If you have any questions, comments, feelings, concerns, or reactions, leave them down below. Or if you have an idea for another video, leave that below as well.